Oh wait. Hope is restored. I'm gonna make sure that Morrigan stays over here, that's fine. I will... Hello. This is your host, Professor Reha. And yes, I might have barely avoided committing the cardinal sin of insta-locking Khepri. Welcome back to the Khepri Clash Guides. This will be one of two additional episodes at this particular point. This is, again, the additional 2 episodes to discuss Khepri in Clash without shoes. So we have, okay, alright, okay. I'm hoping for 3 physical. Ah, yes. The Worshipper Booster. I think that expresses my feelings precisely. Wait a minute. I like how the camera has to zoom out for that. Bagged Milk! This name sounds familiar. I believe I've played with this player before. Maybe. I do seem to remember the name. I think they only play Clash, but I could be wrong. Okay, good. 3 physical. Khepri likes. Khepri loves. Will be the weird thing. I don't even know what the heck this is, but we'll go with it. I don't like it, though. I don't like its hooves. It feels gross. The 6 legs. It's weird. Oh, it's so weird. I love it in a I love it in a hating kind of way. Oh wait, what's their team comp? Hold on. Thanatos, Hercules. Okay, Thanatos is going to be a problem for me because HP. Although hopefully we'll be able to... Well, the execute alone is just a problem for Khepri in general because it also cancels out his ult. Morrigan on top of that is also disturbing. Alright, so how are we going to deal with this? We are going to have to provide some pretty serious protections. So while I normally would not recommend this, by the way, I updated my setup with Khepri, since I remembered that I have a mouse now and I can actually, do things. Anyways, back to the main point. While I would not normally recommend this move, I am going to go for Gauntlet of Thebes. Now, the reason why you normally don't necessarily want to go in for this is because, I forgot that I actually have this down here, is that because of the drastically increased likelihood of very early team fights, starting Gauntlet of Thebes becomes a exercise in risk management, and you have to really play kind of carefully unless the enemy Hercules just waltzes up to you, which is a totally different conversation. Holy cow, we're going to slap this poor soul. I did not mean to steal that. Anyways, under normal circumstances, you have to play pretty cautiously and make sure that you don't, get yourself into trouble or anything because you don't have the protections to survive team fights. So you gotta hope you have a Hercules on the enemy team to really help you out with that. It really makes all the difference. I picked Meditation first, by the way, because I wanted to help prevent executes by Thanatos, which is going to be the major threat on the board. I will be trying to focus him out. Normally, as a support, I would not advocate focusing any specific single target, just to take who you can according to the circumstances normally, but if they have an execute on their team, focus that. At least if you're Khepri. If you're Khepri and you see an execution on the enemy team, make sure that they die. You want their execution to be as weak as possible. You want them to be using that execution as an escape, as a desperation move. Alright. No, you're not going to get out of here. There you go. There you go. That worked out. What happened to Zeus? I was too busy not paying attention. I'm betting Agni has his dash up. That's not going to work out. Oh, Zeus has like no HP. Alright, that makes a difference. Has Hercules used his... No, he has not. No. Oh, no, I tried to save him, but it did not work. Good play. That was a good play. He played that pretty well. I probably overstayed there, but I have Gauntlet of Thebes now, so that's fine. I didn't put it down to glowing emerald. That's a silly mistake on my part. Now my next move is going to be sovereignty. Again, I'm trying to boost up physical protections because I really don't want Thanatos killing people. I want to try to restrict that as much as possible. Alright. He was out of there beforehand, but I'd already cast it beforehand. I'll take her praise for free, though. I'll take the free praise, thank you. I now need to kind of passively sit around here. By the way, the war flag. I chose that specifically because the Zeus, actually my entire team can utilize this. Did I hit him with that? No, he moved back out a little earlier than I was expecting. I missed that. Alright, that's fine. That's fine. Good. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. His beads. Well, at least I got his beads, though. You have done goofed. Oh, my goodness. I keep accidentally stealing kills, and I'm not even meaning to. But hitting Zeus. Why does Zeus always seem to be in danger? Why did I just hit puberty? So many questions. So few answers. Can we kill her? No. Not currently. Not until she ventures out a little bit more. Let's come over here and then see if we can... Let's see if we can... No, she's not even remotely interested. That's a shame. I was hoping we could lure her out and... Okay, Daji's gonna die, and I can't get there in time. Oh, wait. Hope is restored. I'm going to make sure that Morrigan stays over here, that's fine. I will save you. Stupid death scythe. Uh-huh, yeah, you don't pull in a Khepri. Let me just give you a word of advice, son. If you ever play Hercules against Khepri, do not target the Khepri ever. That is nearly always a mistake. It never works out well for you. Because that is exactly what Khepri wants in absolutely all circumstances. Hi there. Oh, this is bad news. He whiffed his Zoltos. That's fairly interesting. Good, good. Okay, alright. What the... I'm gonna die. No, I'm not. They just saved me. Oh my goodness. Just Khepri is so glorious in Clash. It's really amazing. The difference is night and day. Because Khepri never has to worry about being caught out alone in Clash. Well, okay, there is the occasional circumstance. By the way, I apologize if you just heard a noise. I just punched my mic. It's very rare that Khepri is caught out alone in Clash, where it's much more common in Conquest, because there's just more space. That wasn't well coordinated. I mean, he'll still die, don't worry about it, but still. Zeus kind of wasted his ult there for no reason. Hey, I'm just going to rush you people, because I know for a fact that I can survive you. I'm less certain about that now. Now that I'm a pig, this is a totally different question. Hi. I had to pick one of you. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. Get him. You got him. I stole it by accident, but alright. What are we doing over here? You leave my Daji alone. Good job, Zeus, by the way. I don't have mana. Hold on, I gotta get out of here, I'm in danger. Are you still chasing me? Alright. Alright, now I gotta go back. I need sovereignty for one thing. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, I figured I'd get that credit from here. Pestilence? Yes. Hercules, Thanatos, Canonos, definitely. Justifies at least Pestilence. Tainted Steel would have been a bit extreme, though. Okay. And... do you have your dash up? Let's find out. You didn't use it. Alright. Good control, good control. I'll protect you. Nope, you have made a mistake. No, you're fine. You're alright. You're alright. Before she could finish transforming. Uh-oh. Nice. Are you out? Yeah, you're fine. I mean, right now we really don't want to necessarily push up the Phoenix. It's a bit risky. We're so far ahead, I don't want to throw it away. I don't think that went the way he was expecting it to. Yeah? Hey, how you doing? There you go. I will heal you. I will keep you alive. I will protect you. Hi. And now you're dead. Good. I gotta be keenly aware at all times. Alright. I fail at that often. My situational awareness is not the greatest. Hi. Khepri's OP. I was going to body block him against the wall if I needed to. Come here. I don't have the health for this, but come here anyways. Supports don't fear death. At least they're not supposed to. If you fear death as a support, you're playing it wrong. I missed. Oh, wow. That was a slap and a half. Nah, I don't need this in my life, thank you. You think I won't go in there and get you? Here, I'm here. Yeah, I'll die for my team. I don't care. I'll do it again, too. I don't care. Let me see. What should my next relic be? Sprint. Or Heavenly Wings. It used to be called Sprint. Good old days. Let me see. I need cooldown and HP 5, so we're gonna go into Breastplate of Valor. Witchblade isn't necessary here because the only one with consistent auto-attacking potential is the Morrigan and you will not kill her. I will not let you kill her. Not without killing me first. She's only died once. Heck, only Zeus and I have died more than once. You are seriously attacking me? You dare approach me? What are you... Okay. That was actually a good response. What is this insane Zeus? Oh no, it's after me. The Khepri dance of survival. Don't even worry about it. Oh wait, I can't go back yet. I don't have the gold I need. Hold on. My HP 5 shall save me. That is up actually. But I can't afford to go back yet. Here, I'll get the benefits from that, so we'll go ahead and go back at this point. There we go. I'll have enough money to acquire the Breastplate of Valor of my dreams. Now, does Artemis have... Okay, you have some crits. You've got Dominance. I was correct from yesterday, by the way. Not yesterday. Well, yeah, I did record last episode yesterday, so... And then, no crits there. And now you just die. This is brutal. This is a massacre. Not that I mind. This has been an extremely successful support game. Nope. I will just absolutely run at you. I have 6 hooves. Be creeped out. Wow. Oh, this is gonna be ugly. I'll come in and get you. I'll do it again. Hi. How you doing? Nope. Nice. I will not let you die even in their fountain. Alright, so what actually happened there? What specifically happened? Well, a couple of things. First off, obviously, the Hercules rushing us at the beginning, while it did secure the damage buff for his team, not that that was really in contest anyways at that particular junction, it did give us a bit of a leg up. We got first blood right off the top, and we rolled that really effectively. See, the thing is that a lot of our team... close game. Are they a 4-man stack? Ah, they were a 4-man stack. You guys watch Herc die. Yeah, they really didn't have great teamwork. That's actually an interesting point. But anyways, back to the main point here. Besides the fact that Hercules died right off the top, which was partially, actually mostly, that was Hercules' fault for being that aggressive that early, it comes down to the fact that we had really strong early game comp. Gilgamesh has a really strong early game with his kick, but transitions well into the late game, depending on how you build him, and Gilgamesh was building for the longer game, definitely. Artemis just has great early game because of her increased attack speed, but she, again, also scales really well into the late game, although she becomes higher risk in the late game as well. See, Artemis's passive is she does 15% increased damage whenever her target is affected by crowd control. Heavy crowd control, specifically. Heavy crowd control being any kind of crowd control that completely prohibits some form of action, be this a silence preventing you from using your abilities, a root preventing you from moving, etc. That is hard crowd control, technically speaking. In most cases, anyways. That already gives her a good boost at the early game, and her attack speed buff also gives her a pretty substantial advantage in the early game. But as the late game progresses and she deals more and more damage with her auto attacks, that 15% means more and more. But on the other hand, because the enemy team is theoretically also able to inflict more damage, her lack of escape makes her a higher risk to play. So in the early game, she's lower risk but lower reward. Her main source of strong early game is her rain of arrows and her stun and her increased attack speed, which of course a lot of hunters have some, I would say about a third of the hunters have some form of attack speed buff. So she isn't that unusual in that aspect. But in the late game, that passive can really transition into a large amount of damage on Artemis, which is why you see a lot of late game Artemis pentas. That's usually why. Zeus, of course, strong early game. How well he transitions into the late game depends on how you build him, but he's definitely got a really strong early game, and Daji is very early game. She does not transition quite as well into the late game. She kind of falls off, because Daji does what is known as chip damage. She does a large amount of little tiny damage in a row successively, so with the exception of her teleport, the rest of her damage output is primarily in the form of bits of damage. From her auto attacks to her flying scratches, I can't remember what they're called for the life of me. Her heated blades, or whatever they're called, her heated claws, that does a medium amount of damage on the initial hit, and then burns them afterwards for more chip damage. So Daji does have a tendency to fall off in the late game. Thanatos, that's a conversation about whether or not you consider executions to be early or late game. I personally see executions as being a little bit more late game, and Thanatos' percentage of health damage on his death scythe also means that he's got good late game, but his penetration increase on his second ability does provide him with some moderately good early game, although often that's built last, so he usually starts to only really hit his stride in the mid to late game, depending on how well he levels up. Hercules is, for the most part, I would say, early game. He doesn't transition, I'll put it this way, his survivability increases in the late game, but his damage doesn't necessarily follow through in the late game quite often. His passive increases his power by a flat amount, and his self-heal increases his protections by a flat amount, so his early game is very strong. The Morrigan has a variety of things going on. Every third auto attack does percentage of health. I think it's like 1% or 2% of their maximum health over maximum or current health. I can't quite remember. I'll have to double check over a period of like a couple of seconds. And her wave ability that puts an hourglass above the enemy, that increases the damage of the next ability that it hits them. Or does it? No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of this. The way I think of it is different from how it actually is applied. Mentally, I see this as when she has that hourglass on you, the next ability does extra damage, but what technically happens is that the next ability triggers the secondary effect, which is bonus damage from the Morrigan based upon a percentage of the damage that triggered the ability in the first place. I believe is how that technically activates. I'm going to have to double check that. Agni has really good early game as well. Again, depending on how he's built will depend on how well he transitions into the late game. Thanatos really depends, but overall I usually consider him earlier game because you can use the summer season with his auto attacks do bonus damage. You can have a more profound effect on their movement speed with winter that it hurts more. The slow on winter is much more difficult to deal with, and in the late game you can switch to fall for a miniature executioner-like effect, or spring for bonus lifesteal if you really need that as well. But generally speaking, Thanatos, I think, usually fits along the lines of early game, although his passive does increase his damage by 25% when he's in melee range, so it depends on how you play him as well. If you play him purely ranged, then he's early game. If you play him melee towards the later game, if you transition into that, then he does really well in the late game as well. But what actually happened? So he killed the Hercules, and you'll actually notice, experienced players have probably already noticed this, and even the savvier players, they did not have a whole lot of escapes. I was able to simply root Thanatos or the Morrigan, and I wouldn't even necessarily need to abduct them to ensure their deaths. Another thing that I would like to point out is the absurdly expensive items roughly half the enemy team was building. Notice, I want you to notice this very specifically. I took a risk with Gauntlet of Thebes, but I already talked about that, and I outlined why. Gilgamesh went into Aussie right away with Death's Toll as support. This isn't that expensive of an item, I think it's $25.50. Artemis started with Aussie. Zeus started with Kronos' pendant, which isn't that expensive, and then went into Spear of Desolation, which is also not that expensive. They're kind of up there, $2,600, and I believe this is $2,700, but there's more expensive items. It's not quite as expensive as what the enemy went into, and I'll get into that in a hot second. Artemis went into the Wind Demon. Again, not supremely expensive. Daji went into Bluestone, and the Crusher, again, neither of these are that expensive. But consider what the enemy built. Right away, Thanatos went into the Bloodforge, which is one of the most expensive items for physical gods, and then went into Hydra's Lament, when he didn't really have a whole lot of he really didn't have the position to be using this with as hard of a time as he had. Hercules went into Bluestone and Breastplate, which is fine. That's actually really good pickups here, considering we had 3 physical on our team comp. That's cooldown, so that, you've got mana. The Bluestone is perfectly fine on Hercules. He was building okay. Bulwark of Hope, which is under-purchased, in my opinion. Jotun's Wrath, which I kind of do question. He needed to be the official tank of the team, and while I understand that this may have been purchased for the cooldown reduction, I think there were other options, more defensive options that would have been better, and then this was going to probably be Mantle of Discord. Probably. Could have been the other one. But the Morrigan. Conduit Gem, perfectly fine. Rod of Tahuti, right off the top. This is so expensive, and unlike with Conquest, where you have the time to do this, Clash, you kind of need to get a little bit more into an early game faster. You really need to get that early game groove going. You really need to be able to get in there and mix it up quickly, and the Rod of Tahuti is too expensive for the early game of Clash. It just really honestly is. Mid-game to late game, that's when you want to build more expensive items in Clash, but for Clash, you really want to try to get some of the cheaper items that you know will last you the rest of the game, which is why Aussie is so fantastic. This is why Chronos Pendant is a good pickup, even though it's a little bit, I would say borderline, this is almost too expensive. This was a slight risk by Zeus, but again, it is Zeus, so it did kind of pay off anyways. So, you know, an Agni, Chronos Pendant, and then right into Rod of Tahuti. Same problem, except he spent extra time going for Chronos' Pendant first, which is already borderline almost too expensive anyways. Borderline. It's just this side of affordable for early game Clash, but it's right on the very brink of being too expensive. And Thanatos was fine, except from Aussie into Magi's Cloak, which, with the sheer amount of crowd control that we had at our disposal, this wasn't going to really do him anything. He was going to be better off going all or nothing, which at that point wasn't going to mean anything anyways, because he was 3 levels down from our lowest person. So it's a combination, really, of their team composition being abnormally susceptible to our team comp's crowd control, primarily roots, and the strange fascination with half their team, fully 3 of their members, building some of the most expensive items in the game way too early in Clash for them to be making use of that. Thanatos is basically probably operating on Stage 2 Bloodforge, I can't remember what it's called for the life of me, for a good, I would say, the first 5 levels. I doubt that Thanatos finished this, considering how often we killed Thanatos in the early game, and keep in mind that I was specifically focusing Thanatos whenever I had the opportunity. You may not have noticed, but I did have a small preference for prioritizing Thanatos over other targets, although Thanatos' unusually aggressive method of ulting was also a problem, and that's the actual third issue. The enemy team was hideously aggressive. Right from the get-go, Hercules rushed us. Thanatos regularly solo-ulted some individual, and while some of these decisions were somewhat justified, Thanatos was targeting people who were low enough that Thanatos could feasibly kill them. The problem here is that the Thanatos at that point was 1, too low, and 2, I don't think was that experienced with Thanatos. I might be wrong, but Thanatos gave me the impression that they'd played Thanatos for a bunch of games, but still had yet to nail the ultimate with some accuracy. Because Thanatos missed a lot of ultimates, almost all of them actually. So I'm not going to really go too hard on Thanatos here. This does seem like it was kind of a practice session for Thanatos. But Thanatos is, just like Artemis, very high risk, very high reward, but just more so. Because Thanatos also does not have a really consistent escape outside of his ult, and also, besides that, uses a percentage of his health to, use his abilities. So it becomes a bit... Thanatos is just Artemis, but higher risk, higher reward, and melee. Basically. So that was a problem. The Morrigan also was very aggressive. There were a bunch of times where the Morrigan initiated fights clearly either believing or thinking that her team was behind her, and they weren't. The only one, and even Agni would frequently stay around for far longer than his HP justified. There was a bunch of times where I caught him with his dash still up when I never should have. Overall, this really feels like the Thanatos mentioned it was a 4-man. It really does honestly seem like it's a group of 4 players who have recently gotten into the game, and we, granted, did absolutely stomp them, but it happens. But overall, I do kind of feel like these are people who are, at most, intermediate with the game. Either they're trying out new characters, they've never played these particular characters before, or they're playing new roles, which is equally possible, and they've never played these roles before. Because, and I primarily am pointing to the Thanatos' large quantity of missed ults for this, and Agni's refusal to dash in time to save himself. There were, I can remember 2 to 3 occasions in that match where I was able to abduct Agni when his dash was still up. And I've got Agni to Diamond. I know the cooldown of his dash. I think it's, okay, I don't have it down to a specific second. It's 14 seconds, I think. But I know it was up a bunch of times. But that was, I abducted him several times with that still up, and I know it was still up at the time, because he hadn't used it in a while. I hadn't visually seen him use it in a while, and I hadn't seen on the mini-map where he'd used it for a while. So I think this is really just a matter of a 4-man experimenting either with new characters or new roles, and just were too aggressive, is what it looks like to me. I am going to ask, I don't know how many people are eventually going to see this down the road, I'm going to ask that you not be too hard on the enemy team, because I do sincerely believe that they're new at something here. I don't know if they're new to the whole game, or if they're just new to these particular characters. I don't know, but they definitely were not ready for a team of our apparent skill level. This seems like a matchmaking issue, partially. Which, you know, it happens. I know there's a lot of people talking about MMR and matchmaking issues, and matchmaking issues are going to be happening regardless of the game. It's just inevitable. It does have to pick what it can, and like, every once in a while, even the best matchmaking systems are going to make mistakes. It's inevitable, especially when you have, you know, parties and everything. If it's trying to get parties of equivalent size to fight each other, then that messes up the system, which is understandable, but I don't really even need to talk about my team's builds beyond the initial stage, because once we got to about, I would say the 10-minute mark, we had it in the bag. I mean, what we built after our second items really does not largely matter, in all honesty. I mean, it is worth shouting out the Frostbound Hammer locking down Thanatos and the Morrigan even more than I already was, which doesn't help them at all. And Zeus's building of Spear of the Magus allowed us to hit even harder. But other than that, the rest of the items we had on our team don't matter. They really don't. It was mostly the problem of the team being, in some way, I believe, again, this is just my opinion based on how they played, but in my opinion, they were new to something. Again, I'm not sure what aspect of the game they're new to. They were way too aggressive, and they built the most expensive items early. And that's actually another interesting indication that potentially that they might be newer at some aspect here. I mean, Bloodforge is sometimes built early game, but in Clash, not so often the first item you build. Normally with Thanatos, you're going to build either Hydra's Lament, or you're going to build a Jotun's Wrath, or you're going to build something that's going to help you get some nice quick early game damage, and build Bloodforge usually 3rd or 4th. I tend to go towards the 4th item personally, but I've seen it earlier, and I have seen experienced players build it first, but those players played it safe until they got it. Experienced Thanatos players that rush Bloodforge play much safer than this. At least until they get Bloodforge. And again, the more I just think it was just a matter of seeing the physical power, magical power, and going right for that. That's what it looks like to me. And the Thanatos just kind of, I understand that Magi's Cloak was built here to try to survive the massive amounts of crowd control, but we had my Abduct, my Root, which was also going to pull off the Magi's Cloak, Daji's ult, Gilgamesh's kick, Artemis's trap, and Bacon. It was just, we had 6 major sources of crowd control, and Magi's Cloak was just not going to help Thanatos survive or do much of anything. So I think that's what that comes down to, really. That's all I'm going to really say about this match. Again, don't rag on the enemy team. I think they are really new. I do hope they see this. I hope the enemy, this is one of the very few matches where, you know, when I record these videos, I don't really care one way or the other if the enemies see this. I believe I've shouted out one enemy player once specifically, but this is actually the first episode that I will be saying I really hope the entire enemy team sees this video. Because you do seem like you're new to you're either new to the game or the characters. That's fine. We all got to start somewhere. My first games were terrible. I was so terrible for such a long time. But we all got to start somewhere, and this is just a fantastic reminder of this. This game actually, throughout while I was playing it, really brought me back to some of my earliest games. That was rough. Wow, that was rough. But yeah, I mean, we all start from somewhere, and there's nothing wrong with failing. I upload my failures all the time, and I'm perfectly alright with that, because it's not a failure if you learn from it. It'll hurt, and it's tough, but if you can take your losses, your failures, hold them up to yourself, and look at them with an unbiased, critical eye, and identify what you did wrong, that's how you succeed. That's the true key to success down the road. It never happens instantly. So I really hope, the enemy team sees this video. Thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, especially for these players, if you want to give them some encouragement, or maybe some recommendations on some builds. I am Diamond with Agni, Thanatos, and Hercules, but I have not played them without boots, so I am not currently in a position where I am comfortable making build recommendations, because I have not yet tested them with boots. I have not formulated my own personal feelings towards them with boots. I have seen what other people have played with them, and I've seen what is effective and not effective, but until I have played these gods again without boots or shoes, I'm not going to make these recommendations, and when I do make these recommendations, I'm going to make a video about them. But if anybody in the comment section has any kind of build advice for these players, please share it with them. Respectfully. If you do, thank you. Regardless, either way, thank you for joining me on this episode. There will be one more episode of Clash, and then we'll switch over to Joust for 2 episodes, and then we'll do Arena for 2 episodes, and then we're going to kind of do the same thing with Athena, catch her up with shoeless builds, excuse me, and thank you all very much. Have a great 24 hours.